Hello, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Thorsten Kodalle from the Bundeswehr Command and Staff College, and I'm going to present you about Gamification of Strategic Thinking, a board game for learning strategy development and implementation. This is me wearing a Microsoft HoloLens 2 because I'm doing a lot of things concerning gamification. I am a member of two NATO research task groups, one appropriately named Gamification of Cyber Defense and Resilience, and my students developed their own cyber resilience card game. And I'm also a member of the Distributed Wargaming in a COVID-19 World research task group. I really love learning, in particular collecting certifications from massive open online courses on Coursera, which you will find on my LinkedIn account if you scroll really deep and really long. You may connect to me using the QR code above, and I would really appreciate if you drop me a line if this is of any interest for you. However, this Microsoft HoloLens in combination with the Microsoft Minecraft augmented reality app is going to be used to teach agile project management, in particular Scrum. And there will be a little bit of Scrum in this presentation. This is the outline of this presentation. So I'll introduce a little bit about terminology, provide you with the seminar architecture I developed, the seminar goals, strategic thinking with Scythe, what is it actually, SWOT and Scrum, and a few other terms like Kanban and red teaming. And I will share my observations with you. I just collected yesterday after the final tournament of my seminar and after the interviews I conducted with the seminar participants. I will provide some recommendation based of these insights, and I will provide you with a conclusion. So let's jump into it. So there is some terminology. This is a games-based learning conference, and games-based learning is, of course, the umbrella term where you can put serious gaming, wargaming, and gamification beneath. And I am a kind of professional wargamer, and I like to use strategic wargaming in an educational approach to teach fundamentals about security policy, because that is actually one of my professions, being a lecturer on security policy. However, gamification is something that is, from my point of view, a little bit misnomed, and I really like the definition Yukai Cho, who is also a keynote speaker on this conference, provided. And this is actually the thing I'm going with, because I like to make the separation between explicit and implicit gamification. Implicit gamification is when nobody actually realizes that he or she is being gamified. Explicit gamification, then it's obviously because you are playing a game, like in McDonald's Monopoly. That is explicit gamification. Everybody knows you are playing a game. Implicit gamification uses mechanisms, game mechanisms, and the players, so in a way, the employees of a business organization or the customers of a business organization are not really aware that they are being gamified. Serious gaming is, from my point of view, basically using simulations to understand the world a little bit better and playing around with simulations. And this is basically a model exposed to time, which in a way also a board game. Yes, it's a model exposed to time. And I will not enter the rabbit hole of wargaming and wargaming. People who are writing war and gaming separate are really serious about the war part. And wargaming, in one word, this includes also the recreational wargamers who are using commercial off-the-shelf wargames. And this is actually the thing I am using. I'm using a commercial off-the-shelf wargame, which could be phrased a conflict simulation, but it is supposed to be fun. It's not a serious game. It is something that is supposed to be fun, and therefore used in an educational sense could be termed explicit gamification. And therefore this is Gamification of Strategic Thinking seminar I'm doing. And Peter Perler is one of the great thinkers in the wargaming community. Kudos to him. I really recommend his work for any further in-depth study concerning professional wargaming. So the seminar architecture. The seminar architecture has a Scrum overlay. So we will start with a kickoff in November last year, and we will start with a sprint planning in the very first sprint. The sprint is conducted for 2 weeks. It's a time box where all the Scrum events are put into, like daily Scrums. We were conducting daily Scrums. Me and the product owner of all the teams were talking for 15 minutes each day about the seminar and the commitments and their goals. And I will a little bit go more into depth later on this, but the whole overlay is a Scrum experience with 8 complete sprints, including all the Scrum events like sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, sprint retrospective, backlog refinement, all the fun things you do within this Scrum container where you can put a lot of things into it, including all you learned about leadership and actually apply it using the Scrum framework. And in the end of the whole seminar, there is the final tournament, which is the minimum viable product me and my students were going to deliver. This experience of showing off what you have learned about the past 8 sprints, all the skills you accomplished, now under time pressure, playing the game of Scythe in a very serious manner, but still having fun with it. That is the final product the seminar is going to provide. And the after action review was yesterday. And now you will get brand new information about this second version of this seminar. The prototype did run last year. It was also implemented during a pandemic, and we had to do a lot of things basically from scratch, like building up all the internet connectivity infrastructure and the online facilitation architecture using different platforms. And now everybody is used to Zoom, so that was not the challenge that it was 1 year ago. The Scrum overlay, of course, I mentioned the Scrum events, the Scrum artifacts like the backlog. Everybody used a product backlog, for the seminar in total, and every team as a product backlog for their own faction they are going to play in the game. And they were committed to the Scrum values: courage, focus, commitment, respect, openness. And this whole endeavor was a team-centric approach with a high demand for self-organization and high autonomy. And you see there are some elements of self-determination theory in it, especially autonomy. And everybody in the end said, without being specifically asked, that they really, really appreciated the high amount of autonomy and the freedom for self-organization they had during the seminar. Seminar goals. Of course, the intention was to provide a gamified approach to strategic thinking and an experience in an agile mindset. So the ability to test competencies in a non-standard condition. the development of efficient team working skills, like the 4C skills: creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking. This is not really similar to real condition, because we are playing in a fictional environment. But there is a specific focus on developing a certain skill set. So why use gamification? Well, gamification works. In particular, the hypothesis that was already proven last year, it provides a training framework for these 4C skills: communication, creativity, critical thinking skills, collaboration. And the idea is, of course, that if you use all these skills in a game like Scythe, that this might transfer on a higher level, that all these things can, in the end, transfer on an individual level and can be applied in different environments outside the magic circle of the game of Scythe in real life conditions. So all the time management skills you learn in this seminar, the Scrum framework, can of course be applied to any other seminar, any other teamwork the students might encounter in the future. Expected learning outcomes. So this is a learning by doing learning experience. It should increase long-term planning capabilities, strategic mindset. It should increase the flexibility in the planning process, so an agile mindset. It should strengthen the ability to anticipate opponents' short and long-term goals, the prepared mindset you get through playing war games and wargaming. And then this 4C skills that should improve overall productivity: communication skills in a team project, collaboration skills in this whole seminar and group project, practicing creativity in a competitive environment, and practicing critical thinking skills, problem solving on a strategic mindset. Using the Scrum framework, applying Kanban principles, using the SWOT analysis, a basic tool for strategic thinking, analyzing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat in a strategic environment. The ORDER loop: observe, orient, decide, act, and principles from wargaming. Expected outcomes bonus: maybe there could be some transfer to other areas, particular of interest for me as a lecturer on security policy, like understanding and actually feeling strategic balance in security policy, because you are playing a faction, an actor in a strategic environment, and you are confronted with adversaries, and you need to apply adversarial thinking. And you are actually understanding and feel deterrence by observing capabilities and speculating about intentions of other actors and what they are communicating to you, the signaling. And that is part of understanding the DIME framework in security policy. So diplomacy, information, military, economics. Understanding product development, because the team is developing a product of value, which is their faction. And understanding computational thinking, maybe because this is an engine building game and you need to apply the best algorithm to increase the value of your faction. And you are adapting an agile mindset as a student for different study projects, maybe. And maybe adapting a strategic mindset for life choices. So, strategic thinking with Scythe. What is it? First, what is strategic thinking anyway? I am using the military approach, basically also the NATO military approach, which is very Clausewitzian. We have a strategic environment, we are applying a strategic framework, and then we implement a strategy we developed. from the point of view of Clausewitz, and as it is written in the current NATO military strategy, there is this ends, ways, and means approach, which is you think from the end state, you think about ways how to get there, and about means you need to apply to actually reach your end state. This is a very busy slide, and I do not want to fall into the rabbit hole of defining strategy. This is a collection of definitions and concepts from Wikipedia, basically. So you have strategic management and strategic management domains, and strategic management involves strategic planning and strategic thinking, and the output is a strategy. So you provide input from strategic planning. This is an analytical approach, finding the dots, putting it into strategic thinking, synthesizing it, connecting the dots, and the output is a strategy. Concerning wargaming, on the right side, this COTS wargaming, which is computer-assisted exercises wargaming. This is very good in crunching numbers and finding dots. On the left side, the synthetic approach, there's also manual wargaming, where you do not really need to apply a Monte Carlo simulation, 1,000 repetitions, to realize that if you put a brick in your hand and smash it into your face, this really hurts a lot, and you don't need 1,000 repetitions and measure the depth of the penetration into your skull to realize that this is obviously a bad idea. So, strategic thinking with Scythe. What is Scythe? Scythe is a turn-based strategy game, a conflict simulation in an alternative timeline, short after World War I, where fictional countries try to expand and in their territory and their influence. And they have unique abilities. And this is a very good template to learn strategic thinking, because you have many different possible strategies that can lead to victory, and you have unique factions and randomized abilities. And this is a great game with a steep learning curve. And it's a very short game in comparison to other very high complex strategy games. So the very first time I played Scythe, I realized I need to make a seminar out of this. So what is Scythe? Scythe is basically one of the best board games of our time. It's a 4X strategy board game, which means you explore, you expand, you exploit, and then maybe you exterminate a little bit. And this whole thing is a gamified approach to experience a strategic and agile mindset. It has awesome artwork. Actually, it is one of the only games, actually the only game I'm aware of, that was designed after the art. It has an awesome map and awesome game components. It is a tangible game experience, but it is also a digital game experience, because it is available on Steam, Android, and iOS. So therefore, it can be played basically on all platforms together. And therefore, we have a board game as a model of a strategic environment, and we have a constructive simulation simulating this strategic environment with artificial intelligence in it. With bots, you can play against bots and thereby testing strategies and just experiment a little bit and train, of course, for the real life tournament experience. It is an asymmetric game, which is great because now you can really run a SWOT analysis on all the different factions and all their different capabilities. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Are there any opportunities for me to exploit? Are there any threats they provide to me? It is an engine building game, and this is the player mat, where the player has to figure out how to improve his, in a way, military industrial complex. He needs to invest in certain capabilities, get better in producing, And then it is up to him if he wants to deploy mechs, which is always cool. Mechs are cool, basically. But he can also invest in other things, like in popularity. Teamwork. We have 6 teams with 5 players each. Now, Scythe is a game that is not designed to be played in teams. It can be played as a single player experience, but there are 7 factions available. And we played it with 6 teams, but only with 5 players. That was not by design. That was a little bit by accident, because the 6th team joined very late in the development of the seminar, basically just short after the kickoff session. And then they were included. And this, of course, increased the complexity of every team, because the game was designed that in each team, at least one player was able to observe another team in particular. So all this red teaming could be accomplished very easy. Now, every team had the problem that there were one team member short for an effective and efficient wargaming. But that was a fair distribution of this disadvantage. So that was not that problem. No team was at a disadvantage by design. Team organization. An example for one of the factions, Polania, a possible team organization. You have a leader of the faction that could be the product owner from a Scrum perspective, who is responsible for diplomacy. And you have these subject matter experts for all the other factions that provide decision support after they red team the other factions. So basically they develop a strategy from the adversarial point of view and provide decision support for your own leader of Polania, the product owner of your team, because your goal is to increase the value of your own team, and you will provide them with insights or assumptions about what they are going to do. Are they a threat? So, SWOT and Scrum. SWOT and Scrum are not the only methods and frameworks that were the skill sets this seminar was going to provide. There was this Scrum overlay, but there were also Kanban principles, the SWOT analysis as a basic foundation for strategic thinking and any analytical approach to the strategic environment. The ORDER loop as a very important and well-known system in the English-speaking world, not so much in the German-speaking world, and wargaming, of course. So the seminar architecture was Scrum. So there was a Scrum overlay on the whole seminar. And this architecture can be applied to any seminar without really thinking about the content, but you could think about any learning outcomes, any cognitive skills a student needs to get better in, as a kind of software that needs to be installed into the brain of the student. And a Scrum approach is, of course, something that was developed from the software community to develop software products. And basically this cognitive skill set is a way of thinking about a software implementation in your own brain. So you run SWOT 1.0 and you improve it. And in the end, you have SWOT 3.0 capability to do this analytical approach. But you can also think about other skills in a similar way and apply a Scrum architecture overlay about any seminar from my point of view. But there's also Scrum in the game. And in the tournament at the end, the students had to apply the Scrum framework within the game using the sprints in the specific turn sequence. So they had a sprint with a time window of 5 turns. That was the first sprint, and the second sprint 6 to 10 turns, the third sprint 11 to 15, and 16 to 20, the fourth sprint, and in the end, maybe another sprint. There was this Kanban seminar overlay. This is our backlog of the whole seminar. And now you might be inclined to stop the video, scan the QR code, and join this board I copied to you on a special team site in Trello, where you can actually look around at this board, all the things that were done. This was a copy I did 2 days ago. So it's not the end state of the whole product backlog of the whole seminar, but there were already a lot of sprints done, and you can just look around and see what we have done. So this is the SWOT analysis. And this analyzes the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities of threats. Basically, it's well known and a very vital tool for any strategy development. The ORDER loop is, from the point of view of some experts, the application of the scientific method to strategy development. The inventor, John Boyd, 20th century F-16 pilot of the US Air Force, is from the modern strategy approach on the level of Clausewitz and Sun Tzu, but not really that appreciated in the German-speaking world, but very much in the English-speaking world, in particular also in business wargaming, because the ORDER loop can actually be used for different occasions and not only in a conflict simulation. And then in the end, there is, of course, wargaming. One of the best books to read about what is actually wargaming is this wargaming handbook from the UK Ministry of Defense, which I highly recommend. Only about 100 pages, and there is a huge and very good explanation about the whole variations, what wargaming can be. It can be an analytical tool, it can be an educational tool, and I really like to use it as an educational tool. And one element of wargaming is red teaming, which is in particular of interest in the cybersecurity community, but can also, of course, be applied in any conflict simulation where you need to apply adversarial thinking. So, observations I would like to share. On the left side, you see a screenshot from the digital version of Scythe that was used within the tournament by one team to help them figure out what to do next and to get an overview about the movements that were possible on the board. And on the right side, you see the real game board that was used by me and that was distributed using a Slack workspace. And there I put certain pictures from the state of the game into it to share this experience. In a normal setting without any pandemic, it would have been an on-premise learning experience where every team would have their own planning room with maps on the walls and whiteboards and all the things you can do to really apply real planning with huge and big arrows on the wall to make your operational movement clear to any observer. But this was, of course, not possible during this approach. This was a completely distributed approach, and I never saw any of the participants in person, except only via Zoom. However, it actually worked pretty well. And I'm looking forward for next year, without any pandemic, to apply the original design where everybody could get together at a table using their own board game for really applying wargaming at the table, having this face-to-face talk and discussion, and not only in virtual chat rooms via Zoom. So this is the facilitation of a board game out of my basement. And this was in particular only because I have fiber and a 300 Mbit internet connectivity in my home. So I'm using this in my home office and not at the academy. So this is my own Scrum board on my radiator using magnetic cards. And on the left, you see the planning boards. These are DIN R0 printouts, laminated. They should, of course, be in a normal planning room at the wall to everybody to talk about standing around the map, moving things apart, maybe drawing an arrow. So you have this real planning experience of a military staff, basically. But out of my basement, into my Trello and Slack workspace, because there was, of course, we need to put it in on the internet. Right? And this is my widescreen monitor where the Trello backlog of the seminar is very easily to be seen, and a lot of sprints, 8 sprints in total, and a widescreen monitor actually helps a lot with this. So no facilitation or presentation without my cat. So this is the Russian blue in her natural habitat. Like last year, she tried to mess around a little bit with the workers and peaceful population of Polania by jumping around the map. The Scrum overlay as an observation worked great. The Scrum events were very successful. Scrum artifacts were used, in particular backlogs. The Scrum values became evident, either in a very positive way, but sometimes also in a negative way, but they became transparent. And this is one of the great features of Scrum. It provides a very high transparency to the whole process, and thereby you can inspect things. And if you inspect something, you can adapt it if it doesn't go well. That's basically the idea of Scrum. The team-centric approach worked very well. The high demand for self-organization worked very well. And the high autonomy without even actually asking for it. Each team provided this as a feedback that they really appreciated this high autonomy they had and this high freedom in their self-organization within their team. I basically asked the question, did Scrum help you reach your goals? And everybody said yes. Some said in comparison to other seminars they did at the university, it was like day and night. Like in other seminars, they met once a week and worked a little bit distributed, but the results were not that fast, that efficient, like in this learning experience they were participating in. So Scrum really worked. The expected outcomes, learning by doing. I asked, did your strategic planning capabilities improve? Did your strategic thinking improve from your point of view? And everybody said yes, basically. Everybody rated communication as one of the most important skills concerning the four C skills. I did not actually ask for, is there a certain strengthening concerning the ability to anticipate opponents' short and long-term goals? However, during the tournament, one of the faction actually felt a little bit betrayed because one of the treaties they had with another faction were broken and they felt a little bit backstabbed on the battlefield because they were attacked without being expected to do so. So what about the bonus expected outcomes? As a facilitator, I observed by talking to all the teams during the tournament that they actually felt this dilemma of the strategic balance and security policy. Do we need to build a mech or can we go for popularity? That is actually something that is in real life very similar. You need to try to achieve a strategic balance with your budget. Do you buy an aircraft carrier? Do you invest in hospitals or schools, universities, or healthcare? And usually you do not have the resources to invest in all to the degree you really want. So there will be a trade-off, and you need to get to a strategic balance from your point of view, which might not be a popular point of view and might not actually be the correct point of view. They really felt deterrence. You can see capabilities on the battlefield. Everybody can see every asset that is available, every capability. That's like chess. You have 100% visibility of all assets of the game board, all the capabilities, but you cannot look into the mind of the other player. If you've seen The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, you have a certain appreciation for this. You can see capabilities, but you do not really see the intention of someone. And the signaling, is someone signaling something to you, and is he really truthful? Will he honor his word and value the treaty? Maybe not. These are dilemmas that became obvious to the teams. So there was an understanding of DIME in security policy because they actually have this effective learning experience that they felt threatened and they communicated with other factions and they try to reach the strategic balance by using the engine building to develop certain capability to build up deterrence, an example. Understanding product development, yes, because they were thinking from the outside with this mindset of the faction as a product, and the leader of the faction was by definition the product owner, and it was his goal to develop the most valuable product in this strategic environment. Computational thinking is another matter. We didn't really press on that, but the whole algorithm of optimizing, of trying to reach the highest efficiency on your engine is of course something that is something you can really put a little bit more effort into. And I observed people who were really good in computational thinking, like programmers, that were playing this game on a very, very high level because they saw the most efficient combination you could run your engine with. Yeah, students replied to me that they would really like to use the skills they learned in the seminar also in other projects, also a lot of the Scrum things. However, if this is something that will be adapted for life choices, is of course that's something that can be answered right now. So my recommendations. Scrum is great. Become a Scrum Master. It was only possible for me to run the seminar in the way I did because I was certified Scrum Master. I was certified as a Scrum Master last year in December. But I started without being a Scrum Master and I practiced during the seminar. This is something like fake it till you make it. Call it agile education. It's great. It works. Use a Scrum overlay to every seminar you want. If the seminar is not designed to be death by PowerPoint, but has the potential to be team-centric, then this is a viable option for you. And if the seminar is not team-centric right now, transform your seminar into a team-centric learning experience. Find a game that fits, or develop your own game with your developers, because all your students are basically developers and you all are a Scrum team, and game development is agile by design. And in case you want to develop your own game, play a great commercial off-the-shelf game first, then reverse engineer it, because imitation is driver for innovation. Call it an educational research and development project. This was the way my students developed the cyber resilience card game by playing Android Netrunner first for a long time. So conclusion, gamification works. Everybody I talked to yesterday in the after action review was asked the question, did gamification work for you? So, and I defined it a little bit more specific. Did this seminar, did this facilitator trick you into investing time, maybe more than you would originally wanted, maybe after duty, after your normal timeframes? Did you play the game because it was fun and then practiced certain skill sets in a repetitive manner, and thereby reaching a high sustainability of this cognitive knowledge or this behavioral skill. Did this work? And everybody said, yes, this worked. The game was great. It was fun playing it. It was fun playing it after duty. So I also asked if Scythe is an appropriate game for training strategic thinking, and Scythe basically provides a great strategic environment to train and experience strategic thinking, at least for beginners. And the ability to work in a self-synchronizing team with very high autonomy, increasing intrinsic motivation by design. Just giving a group, a team, the freedom to think about what they are going to do next, to pick from the product backlog the things they want to do into their sprint backlog. That is what Scrum is all about, this team-centric approach where your developers decide what to do, what requirement actually they want to fulfill in the next step, which is a viable option for them according to their skill set and their availability. And just providing them with this autonomy is great, increases intrinsic motivation by far. And this is close to self-determination theory. Think about Daniel Pink's book Drive, the surprising truth about what actually drives us. Purpose, autonomy, mastery. One student said to me, she really liked it becoming an expert in Scythe. That was great. Oh, that was great. This was mastery. But everybody said it was great having this huge autonomy of deciding about what they were going to do next and how to do it. And this is basically the Scrum approach. Give this freedom to your team and let them decide how to do the work by themselves. So finally, strategic wargaming with different purposes has great value. Educational, so 21st century skill training, very great. Cognitive patterns for decision-making processes, decision games, great. And from an analytical and synthetic point of view, finding and connecting the dots also works great. So any presentation about something with wargaming isn't complete without a Peter Perler quote. So we may never know the right answers, but gaming can sometimes help us learn to ask the right questions. And the final observation, of course, is that the real danger for the peaceful population of Polania was not the Rus Viet Mech, but the Russian blue, like last year. And this ends this presentation. Every participant of the seminar gets a certification of achievement, which certifies that they actually did these action-oriented skills in the areas of Scrum, Kanban, SWOT, OODA loop, and wargaming. That each participant was in the role of a Scrum Master and a Scrum product owner for at least one sprint, so 2 weeks in total. And that is, of course, a very high degree of experience they have. The usual Scrum seminar is about 2 days, and then you have a practice phase where you play with Lego, usually for 1 day, and you have all these sprints that are 7 minutes. In this approach, you have this Scrum overlay, about 4 months, 8 sprints, and a 2-day final tournament where the sprints are a few hours long, a few turns. And you can put everything you learned about Scrum in the sprints before, the 3 months before, and put it to use and show off your skills under time pressure. So this ends this presentation. Thank you very much for being interested in this, and please connect with me.